My name is Henry Leck, and I'm the president of the Arts Alliance of Greater Bloomington. I'd like to welcome you tonight. This evening is sponsored by the Waldron Arts Center and Arts Forward and the Arts Alliance of Greater Bloomington. To give you an idea of what to expect tonight, the evening will begin with each candidate giving opening remarks, after which Gabe Glodden, our moderator, will begin by asking 2 questions of each candidate. There were 12 questions sent out to the candidates in advance, and so they'll each be asked the 2. After this, we'll be taking questions from the floor, and when you came in, you were given index cards, and please fill those out, and as Tom had said, we'll be collecting those and sorting through them over here and getting them to Gabe. The people sorting cards over here are Dallas Comentale from the Council of Arts and Humanities, and Sally Gaskell, who's a well-known arts administrator and on the board of Constellation. So welcome and thank you for that. Our timekeeper tonight is Susan Savastik, and we're glad that she'll keep us on task. And I think he's here. No, I guess not. So to introduce the 3 candidates, we'll start with Susan Sandberg. She attended IU, majoring in speech and theater in the early 70s, when she was a varsity touring member of Singing Hoosiers. And after singing jazz in various groups in Chicago during the 80s, she returned to IU for a degree in psychology and has worked in child protective services in Greene and Monroe counties and in family case management with the foster care agency. She worked for the O'Neill School of Public Environmental Affairs at IU in Arts Administration program, and later with Career Services. Susan is a 4-term elected council member on the Bloomington City Council. Donald Griffin, who will be here in a moment, was appointed deputy mayor in March of 2021. Hey, there he is. Let's introduce him.
That's how I do things.
Welcome. And he served as in this role through December of 2022. He's been a community leader, including as president and co-founder of the Monroe County Black Democratic Caucus, president of the Redevelopment Commission, and board member of the IU Eskenazi Museum of Art, and many other not-for-profits. In addition, Don has founded and led the Griffin Realty Holdings for more than 20 years. And last but not least, Carrie Thompson has been the executive director of the IU Center for Rural Engagement, where she took a startup organization to national success. She also is the former CEO of the Habitat for Humanity of Monroe County. And in that capacity, she took the organization from debt to surplus and helped build over 200 homes. Carrie has managed large teams, complex systems, and multi-million-dollar budgets. She's a proud mom of 5 and a blended family with 2 dogs who love calling Bloomington their home. Now to begin the evening, let me introduce our moderator for tonight. Gabe Glodden, who many of you know, is the managing director of Constellation, Stage and Screen, and has served in the arts leadership roles for over 15 years, including locally as the former managing director of Cardinal Stage Company and Bloomington Playwrights Project. He's also one of the founding members of Arts Forward Bloomington, which is a local collective of artists, arts organizations, and art supporters that address pertinent topics of critical interest to the economy of local Bloomington arts community. So without further ado, let's welcome Gabe Glodden.
All right, well, I just got to start off by saying, wow, thank you all for showing up for the arts. This is a great turnout. Yeah, absolutely. Arts Forward did a candidates forum in 2019 before you know what happened, and I'd say we had half this amount of people here, and so it's great that over the last 3 years the momentum has continued in support of the arts, so thank you. I'm going to start off real quick with a very hopefully uncontroversial statement that I think we can all agree on. I feel very confident in saying that the vast majority of us in this room right now are very grateful to live in a city like Bloomington that values the arts as an essential fabric of our community. And I think the survey data supports this, and I love quoting all these surveys. So in the city's recent 2021 community survey, community support for the arts was the most popular city characteristic, with 89% of the respondents rating it either excellent or good. And the 3rd highest rated characteristic, well, that was opportunities to attend cultural arts and music activities, which 85% of the respondents rated as either excellent or good. So that was all from the 2021 survey. The arts responses have always been at the top of that survey for the last 3 times that survey's been done. So we're doing great, right? What's the point of being here? But I want to sit into like, can we do better? And that's what I'm hoping we're here tonight to discuss. So we all have a level playing field. We, myself, along with Holly Warren, the city's assistant director for the arts, who is here. Big thanks to Holly for helping this. Yep, helping out with this. We created 2 handouts for you, which hopefully most of you have. One, it's hopefully going to provide just a basic overview of the myriad of ways that the city has supported the arts recently, what it has planned for 2023, specifically in terms of funding. So a large portion of the city's arts funding goes to support the arts initiatives out of the city's Department of Economic and Sustainable Development, including the assistant director of the arts position, and about $65,000 in grants for arts-related activities that are administered through the Bloomington Arts Commission. Do we have any commissioners for the BAC and present? Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. The city also supports the presentation of arts through the Bloomington Urban Economic Zone via the BUEA, including some zone arts grants. Do we have BUEA membership here? Awesome. Thank you for being here. I can't see who you are, but you sound great. And then, of course, the Bloomington Parks Department presents a wide variety of arts-centric events and sponsored artist programs. And the city also, of course, supports the Buskirk-Chumley Theater with an annual program support allocation of $55,000. That's this handout here. We created a little budget for you, line iteming, all of the things as much as we could possibly fit on this page, so we all kind of have an understanding of where we are, and the candidates receive this in advance as well. I also wanted to draw a note to the Recover Forward funding. So launched in July 2020, just a quick reminder, the mayor's Recover Forward plan addressed the economic challenges the city faced in the wake of the pandemic, and the arts was a recipient of much of this investment, including enhanced arts grants and funds to support the maintenance and upgrades to the BCT and the Waldron, which we're all in right now. And the city also funded a really cool arts feasibility study and subsequent initiatives based on its recommendations. We can all read those in the handout as well and reference those if we want to in our questions. So much of, I just want to point this out, much of the Recover Forward and current 2023 arts spending comes from allocations of the city's American Rescue Plan or ACT or ARPA funds, which need to be fully allocated, if I'm right about this, by December 31st, 2024. And we've indicated those funds on that line item budget that you see. So in the handout, you can see what is what I'm calling non-renewable funding. So while the arts has benefited greatly in recent years from this enhanced funding, it's non-renewable, and the city arts funding from renewable sources, that is general fund, local income tax, the BUEA, et cetera, amounts to a little over $500,000 for 2023, of which $432,000 is for what we've termed operations, so non-capital spending. Is all this really exciting to you guys? I hope it is. But I want everyone to be on the same page. Wanted to also do a quick note that what's not listed here is the anticipated capital funds from the city's 1% for the arts ordinance, which stipulates that at least 1% of the cost of construction for selected capital projects be used for public art at those projects or elsewhere. We just weren't unable to get accurate figures in time for this publication of this handout, so I just want everyone to be aware of that. But we also want to acknowledge it, knowing that much of the funding is going to be supporting art at the Trades District and the Hopewell project at the old hospital site. So here's how we're going to proceed. We're going to have some welcoming remarks from our candidates in alphabetical order. There's a process to this. You'll each have 3 minutes to give those remarks, and you'll be hearing from our timekeeper if you're reaching your allotted time, Susan, who's already indicated herself. Thank you so much, Susan. And after the opening remarks, I'm then going to select from a series of pre-selected questions that we provided the candidates in advance for a time for them to answer and respond to each other. We're going to give them about 2 minutes to answer each of those questions that we asked. And then hopefully we're going to be turning the floor over to you guys to ask your own questions. You hopefully had your comment cards, you filled those out, and you're delivering those to Sally and Ed over here. We also will probably have volunteers floating around if you, great, thank you. So just wave your hand if you've got one of those you want to fill out. We'll hopefully get all of those in by the time we finish up with the opening remarks, so we have our friends over here have time to curate those. And then hopefully keep that under 20 minutes, that section as well, before we finish with some closing statements in reverse alphabetical order. So that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to call it a night. So I want to open the floor to our candidates, starting with Mr. Don Griffin for their opening remarks.
Okay. How you folks doing? You don't have to respond, but yeah. Hey, how you doing? You know, my campaign slogan is Believe in Bloomington. And basically it's saying we need to be better than who we are. We need to be Bloomington, but better. And if we lean into the things that make Bloomington special, that makes us all Bloomingtonians, we can become iconic. And we need to be iconic in this global economy to set ourselves apart from not only the rest of the world, but also the rest of Indiana. Let's just be honest. So we have to say, this is who we are. And in essence, I think that lies in sustainability. That lies in being leaders in diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and the sense of everyone belonging. That lies in better housing for everyone, high, low, better housing. But it also lies in economic and cultural growth. And I see that Bloomington, no one can do arts, cultural, and music better than Bloomington. No one in Indiana, no one in the Midwest. We've got more people, artists per capita than any other community in the entire country. And we need to lean into that. I want to be the arts, music, and cultural destination of the Midwest. We can do that. That's what Believe in Bloomington is. We have all these folks here, and if we had an engineering department instead of Jacobs, we would call it brain drain when we let them leave. I want to make our community a place where they can stay here and hone their craft. Not all of them, but a lot of them, right? We don't want all of them, but we want a majority to say, stay here. Let's create culture. Let's create industry around what you do, and it starts with the youth, but it also starts with the students that we have over there. So Believe in Bloomington means taking that resource and just honing in on it. I think we've got an amazing community, arts community, but we haven't been intentional about making it great. And that's what we need to do. That's what Believe in Bloomington is all about. And I want you to go on that journey with me.
Thanks, Don. Susan.
Well, thank you to the Arts Alliance, Arts Forward, the Busker Chumley Theater, and you, Mr. Gloden, for inviting us here. It's a pleasure to answer your questions. Since attending IU as an undergraduate, I recognize Bloomington as a special place, rich and stimulating in its arts culture. You know, even before college, my family would travel to Bloomington to take advantage of the world-class art and performances hosted by the IU School of Music and the IU Auditorium. As a performing artist myself, a former IU singing Hoosier, a current member of the Uke Tones, I know about the opportunities and challenges faced by local artists. Bloomington can boast a long history of excellence in performing, visual, and literary arts. The arts brand is the very reason why many of us who received our education here decided to stay and make Bloomington our home. And yet, we have much to lose if we don't keep focus on what sets Bloomington apart from other, even much larger cities. COVID brought many arts organizations and venues to a paralyzing halt, and the Recover Forward investments that I wholeheartedly supported brought emergency resources to invigorate the arts and the downtown. In my experiences here, as a resident and 16-year member of the City Council, I see that when Bloomington faces hardship, Bloomingtonians get creative. As mayor of Bloomington, I will continue to support the arts in funding, leadership, and the collaborations needed to keep our arts reputation strong. The arts provide personal enrichment and entertainment, and they also drive our local economy. Investments in the arts support local restaurants, small businesses, parks, and neighborhoods. The arts are one of the most influential means to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. You are a growth industry every bit as essential to Bloomington as our biomed and tech sectors, and I will give the arts proper priority in public support. Supporting the arts in Bloomington is a winning public policy. And if I may just conclude by saying, I'm also the sister of Sarah Sandberg, prop master extraordinaire for Cardinal Stage. She's an arts educator. And I'm very proud to have her here with me tonight, and part of my credentials is an artistic family. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Carrie.
Well, thank you so much to our hosts, and what a treat it is to be in this jewel, the Waldron. What an incredible job, the restoration and really the dynamic renewal of this building calls people in to belong as they're experiencing the performing arts and also the visual arts. And I'm so grateful that we have such incredible arts organizations here in our community, as well as individual artists. And in fact, you all, the community that you have created here, are really probably why I landed here. Because as I rode my bicycle from San Francisco to DC after college, I was stunned, having grown up just outside of DC, when I got off of my bicycle in Bloomington, Indiana, and thought, what is this incredible place? Look at the downtown and look at, back then, the many placards stapled all over telephone poles for events that were happening and discussions, and the galleries and the performing arts and the music. What I saw, and what I couldn't quite put my finger on then, was this community that called people in to do what the arts do the best, right? We don't have to agree on anything in order to experience something together and then discuss it, whether it's visual arts or performing arts. I call myself sort of a practitioner of the arts because I am a fiber artist of nothing that you probably would ever want to buy, and also a creative writer. But I do those things because they exercise the part of my brain that each one of us as humans must exercise if we want to reach our full potential. It's the part of our brains that helps us get outside the box when we're trying to solve problems and we're trying to envision something new that we can't put our finger on. The arts are essential for our community, not as an extra, not as a nice to have. They're essential because they give us what we need to fully live into our possibility. I'm running for mayor because we have such an incredible city, and I think our city government should be just as incredible. You all, the arts community, helps Bloomington be incredible. I'm grateful to be running. I'm Carrie Thompson, and I'd love to be your next mayor.
Thanks so much, Carrie. All right. Well, Holly and I wouldn't have gone, and that we'll get right into the questions here. And amazingly, we're magically back on time, so kudos to us. But I will jump right into questions, and these are from a pre-selected group, but I have the power to ask the question. And you know, I wouldn't have gone through with Holly this hard work of laying out all of the funding for you guys, providing it to you in advance, without being able to ask a question about funding. And I'm going to start with Susan, and everyone's going to have a chance to answer this. But the reason I'm starting with Susan is because from what I heard, you were the only candidate that mentioned you would continue supporting the arts at the current level. At least that's what I heard. And so question to all of you. Would you be willing to extend or possibly increase the current amount of direct financial support for the arts? If yes, what ways would you increase it? If no, what would you cut? And maybe we can add another dimension there, is if you would reallocate the current funds to serve a specific purpose. if possible. But we'll give Susan 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll move on to the other candidates.
Well, yes, certainly as someone who has reviewed the budgets of the city of Bloomington for the past 16 years, there are a lot of things that your tax dollars go to support, including the arts. It has been an important part of our brand, and as such, something that I will, as your next mayor, be more than happy to continue at the current levels and to the extent that we possibly can. And we did raise your local income taxes during the ED Lit discussion last year, and there are more dollars allocated in those buckets that we increased the income tax for. Obviously, the city of Bloomington is very complex. There are a lot of departments that we need to take a hard look at, and as mayor, I will most certainly have to review the fiscal health of the city, take a look at what our debt loads are, and take a look at where our controller and our department heads feel they need to help us build the budget. But as you've already heard from me, my commitment to the arts has always been strong. Our commitment to the Buskirk-Chumley Theater and the Waldron Arts Center was largely because the city council approved that. That $55,000 that supports the Buskirk, that remained in our city council line because we wanted to protect that. We didn't want it to be put back in the general fund. We wanted it to be specifically for the arts. So you have my commitment that I will do everything in my power to keep the arts funding as it is and grow it as we can. Thank you.
Great. Don, would you like to respond?
You know, as one of the three people who put together the last two budgets, you had a champion on there pushing for that the money that you did get. I would love to put more dollars, actually more dollars, to go towards the arts community. Of course, I would have to look at the budget and see if what we could give you is sustainable. But you know, I think more outreach. I want more youth outreach. I want an incubator space. I'd love to have a incubator slash performance space for youth, similar to what we used to have at Rhinos. I think engaging the youth would be amazing. So there's things that I absolutely want to do. I want more public art, right? I love going to Chicago and just walking around during an arts a jazz fest and seeing all the. I want us to have a piece of that, right? So yes, if I can do it, I'm going to get it. Part of the reason that I'm doing this is to push us forward, to push us to this community that I know that we can be, and arts is a big, big part of it.
Thanks, Don. Carrie.
I don't see why we can't increase the funding to the arts. Really, what I understand to be true is that there's only $68,000 of non-capital arts budget. So increasing that in a $229 million budget seems to be sort of a no-brainer. How much we can increase it, I don't know. And I absolutely would want to meet with the arts community, the folks that know best about what our priorities should be, to get stakeholder engagement and advice about where we go with our funding for the arts. Arts is economic development. In my role as executive director of the Center for Rural Engagement, we are now working with more than 80 different municipalities. And one of our three focus areas is quality of place. And some of our partners are here tonight, and the stories that come out of our quality of place engagements and what they drive in terms of gathering people together that otherwise wouldn't be together, but also creating spaces that call people in to gather themselves and to connect with one another. Pride points for these communities. This is how we do economic development. If Bloomington's not special, people are not going to want to live here and visit here. And that's what keeps us thriving.
That's great. 1 minute if any of you want to respond to what anyone else said. We can give you 1 minute each for response, or we can move on to the next question. Totally up to you guys. Great. So we all agree. Don, you mentioned the incubator space, which I
Yes.
think is really cool. This is something that came out of the feasibility study and kind of relates to one of the pre-selected questions, so I'll go ahead and ask it.
Okay.
Because I think the intention is to really try to provide more spaces for not only new and emerging groups, but underrepresented groups. And just wondering, for all the candidates, what opportunities exist right now to expand access to the arts to underrepresented groups, and what would you see as mayor trying to prioritize in order to do just that?
I think you make it more accessible by making it affordable and cheap. And part of what we need to do, we need to take a food truck mentality when we think of arts. I think I'm on the Eskenazi board, the museum board, and we talk about that all the time. Figuring out a way to take art to the people. We have to do that more often. So I think you expose more people and also younger folks to art. I was thinking about my mom taking me to art lessons at the age of 5 at Indiana University every Saturday. We would do that. We would do.
And you loved it, right?
I loved it, absolutely. And I ended up going into architecture. I mean, I sell houses now, so that's a little different. But it all worked in the right way. Art is. We just have to get art to more people. I think using our international or just the diversity that we have of people, which is also a part of this community of belonging. When we're going to have to tie those things together. It's a perfect combination. The diversity of folks that we have, plus our abilities to teach art and do art, we can do that together, mixing those things together.
Great. Carrie.
I think the incubator is an incredible idea that came out of the study. And I do think that we have some possibilities to leverage here in Bloomington, partnerships with the Mill. What is our new convention center going to look like? And are there spaces there that might foster this? I also think that we have a tremendous opportunity with the Hopewell Project to look at what it might look like to have an art-centric neighborhood. If we're looking at how to provide increased affordable housing to our to people who work here, we should certainly prioritize artists as part of that. And anytime we're designing a neighborhood, any place that people come to and belong, of course the arts needs to be part of it. Our community has several great initiatives that I think that we could invite in more comprehensively. We have a children's show choir here that is doing a great job of outreach, but they have built really a community, and they've moved their practice space into Fairview Elementary and are providing full scholarships for kids who are unable to pay the fees. We have, of course, our hosts tonight, but we also have a lot of other startups. And what we know about startups is that they need the possibility of succeeding. And in order to have that possibility of success, you need an affordable place to be. And we need to make that accessible to artists. And so I would start with a stakeholder group that could advise on how we can diversify our arts and how we can really think creatively about this incubator space.
Great. Susan.
In my opening, of course, I referred to the fact that the arts deserves an incubator space every much as the Mill. But in order for that to be executed, we're going to need to find a Pat East for the arts. And again, that's a partnership issue. That's finding who would be the leadership for an initiative like this. where would the capital come from to get something like that started? Because you're going to need a structure, you're going to need a building. And so it is certainly an intriguing idea. It's one that I would love to pursue with the proper collaboration and the proper partnerships. Again, with the Hopewell project, which again, we've all got some grand ideas about how we'd like to see that develop. I think housing has been the primary focus of the designs at this point. But in our discussions about how do we provide affordable housing, that historic core building, which was protected from the elimination, that was discussed early on, that could maybe be a space for affordable housing, maybe live, work space, and that could be a place for artists. I have yet to hear what the actual plans are for that at this point in time, but Hopewell is a very hopeful blank slate at this point for us to think about. How might we develop a building, the capital, the right leadership to bring some sort of arts incubator forward that would be a definite positive addition to the arts culture here in Bloomington.
We have 1 minute?
Yeah.
Have 1 minute?
Yeah, feel free.
You know,
Thanks, Don.
I'm the guy that, had us invest in that study that we're talking about. Part of the incubator space, when we look at what could be the incubator space, it's the building, the Brutalist building on Rogers and First. If anyone's familiar with the Brutalist building that's still standing up, it used to be a convalescent center. And 20 affordable studios can go in there, plus 20 studio apartments. Affordable studio apartments can go there. We can have space on the bottom for art exhibits and concerts. There is opportunity. I think the city is actually looking into that and looking for partners. There's some other places. There's churches downtown that could also act as space for youth. So they can have their own separate space. There are opportunities, folks. We just need private and public to come together.
Great. Anyone else like to respond to that?
Certainly, and of course, we've also talked about the convention center and the expansion. And once we can get the city and the county on board and cooperating with how that's going to move forward, that does offer an opportunity for some expansion of the arts within that center. Again, we're thinking about placemaking, we're thinking about tourism, we're thinking about how we attract people to Bloomington and how we have the attractions already, but how we can certainly build on more. So every single opportunity that we have to expand into new territory where the arts can also expand, I'm absolutely interested in partnering and looking forward to those collaborations as mayor of Bloomington.
Great. All right. Well, I think we actually have time for one additional pre-selected question before we get to... Great. Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any questions that they want to turn in before we eventually get there? We got Joanne over there passing one in. But, yeah. Yes, please. There's plenty of seats. Although I want to be able to say we had a standing room only crowd. I would rather you guys have a comfortable seat to sit for the next half hour of the forum. But I'm really glad that the subject of affordable housing came up, and I am not going to be saying anything, I think, controversial here yet, but unless your name's rhymes with Schmellenkamp, you're probably not getting rich working in the arts. And I know as someone in my position, one of the major challenges that we face at Constellation and anywhere that's trying to create a fertile home for the arts is providing affordable housing for folks, including artists. And one of the pre-selected questions is, do you see a significant relationship between supporting the arts and supporting low-income housing specifically? And yeah, Carrie, if you want to respond to that as someone who has a history with housing, I'd be interested for you to kick that off.
Yeah, and unfortunately, supporting the arts and supporting low-income housing currently go hand in hand because, of course, very few full-time artists are of high means. I did spend 20 years as the director of Habitat for Humanity, and in that work, I came to understand pretty intimately the various ways that people are in need of housing and what that looks like. And I think the most important thing to say about housing, especially low-income housing, is there is no silver bullet. Not everybody, first of all, wants to live in the same kind of place. And I would say, especially for artists, we need them to have a place that is restful and a place that that they can, where their imagination can come alive. We need to look at not only multifamily housing, but also single-family housing. We need to look at how we can create housing that is close to the downtown, because of course, transportation costs are part of your cost of housing. But more than that, we also want people to be able to access the resources that are here and contribute to our downtown at all hours of the day. It's important to have different kinds of people be able to afford our downtown, and it is also important that we have housing that is available for people who do not want to live downtown. I'm looking at Hopewell in particular as the most opportune place to create some new housing, but there are also a couple of other places that I think that we need to activate. For instance, the first floor commercial that's currently in existence. I have a 5-point housing plan on my website at carryforbloomington.com, and I'll encourage you to go there. Happy to answer your questions.
Okay, Susan.
Well, Carrie is certainly right that there is no silver bullet when it comes to affordability, and I know this very well. It's been something that we've struggled with for the entire time that I have been on the City Council. We will work cooperatively with people who are in the affordable housing business. That's one of the first issues that I will tackle as mayor of Bloomington. There are specialty people in the industry who do focus on affordability. We then need to work with our local real estate professionals to help us with where the sites might be for us to do a more affordable housing development. We need to take a look at our unified development ordinance. That's the zoning code. We need to make some changes there in order to incentivize and properly incentivize affordable housing to the best of our ability. We also need to, again, make sure our city infrastructure can handle new developments. I'm a big believer in historic preservation, which means I'm a strong supporter of our core neighborhoods and respecting the older housing that we already have that is under some threat right now for some of the changes that the UDO brought forward. We need to take a hard look at that, because some of the most affordable housing is older housing. And so protecting, remodeling, remediating the housing that we already have instead of replacing it with the brand new spanking shiny new, which is not going to be affordable. The private market is not going to bring that in under affordable rates. So there are a lot of common sense things that we need to tackle to make housing affordable for everyone, in particular artists who certainly can benefit from more truly affordable housing in this community, not the market rates that we're currently dealing with.
Thanks, Susan. Don.
Okay, so the Hopewell that we're talking about, the old hospital, those were my projects, not only as the president of the Redevelopment Commission, but also as the deputy mayor for the last 2 years. So that's kind of my thing. There are going to be a lot of opportunities, probably about 1,100 units that are over there. Only about a quarter of those are going to be affordable because of the price of the land, even due to the fact that the city is going to kind of give that stuff not away, but at a, deeply discounted, so that we can get affordable housing. But there's still not going to be enough. I think that's what I'm trying to say. We're going to have to use other, there's some parking lots that are downtown that are owned by the city that might have to be engaged for more affordable housing for artists. And folks, this 23 to 33-year-old range that we're trying to retain and recruit, we've got to figure out a way. There's not enough traditional housing. We've got to increase density. I know you don't want to hear the term plexes. I know you don't want to hear the But there are things like micro condos that we need to think about. There are cottages, cottage living. There are all kinds of opportunities that we need to think of. Look, I've sold $500 million in real estate over 30 years. I know what needs to happen. I know what we have to do to keep people here and keep the artists that are going to be vibrant for our community. And the other 23 to 33-year-olds who can't sing a lick, and we don't even want to hear them sing.
1 minute for responses if any of the candidates want to respond.
I think that it's critical that we don't think about my project or your project. We think about our community's projects and what partnerships we can leverage to create the Bloomington that we need in the next 40 years. That's what's important here. We do have a lot of possible partners that can come to the table, public, private, nonprofit. We have smart people in Bloomington. And we know how to create a livable Bloomington. And yes, we need a diversity of housing products, but that doesn't mean that they have to be terrible to walk next to. Just because you put lots of houses together does not mean that we create a community where people don't want to live. We can envision that together before we continue with the kind of building that has been happening.
Anyone else? We will get along to our very first audience question. So, anonymous, no names on these. What are your specific plans to support emerging artists and cultural entrepreneurs as an investment in Bloomington's quality of life? How will you keep recently graduating artists in Bloomington? And I will emphasize specific plans. And let's see, who should we start with? Since John, since you've mentioned it the most.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from you first.
Specific plans? Well, I'm smart enough to know that I don't have all the plans in the world. I know that true leadership is having other people lead in the things that they know what to do. So, when it comes to arts, I mean, I've picked some pretty amazing people with Holly and her crew. I've got John Zodi at hand that can help with housing. My job is to create an environment, a sense of place, and an idea. We have to create an idea and say, this is our moonshot. And no one has actually ever said that. We've been doing well just organically, right? We've become this art community organically. We've had people stay organically, but we haven't been intentional about it. And that's to go to the next stage. That's what needs to happen.
Great. Susan.
Well, with respect to emerging artists, this is a typical problem when you're in a university community. You have all these incredibly gifted and talented and young people coming to school here at IU, and then we're a relatively small city, and so there are not job opportunities for all the array of talent that's going to be graduating from our university, and so with respect to what the mayor of Bloomington can do, and I hope I get the opportunity to do this, is we need to take a look at the livability of the city, essential city services. Are we providing what we need to provide to make sure that there are safe streets and sidewalks, that there are affordability in our housing stock, that there are all kinds of things that would make people who have come to IU, like I came to IU and then wanted to stay and had the opportunity to stay because there were job opportunities available. So this goes hand in hand with economic development. And this is, as many of us have already pointed out, you help drive that by having attractions in the city that makes this a desirable place for people to want to stay. And then, of course, we have to meet the needs for infrastructure. We have to meet the needs for the housing. It's a complicated issue, but it is one that I am certainly eager to tackle as your next mayor.
Thank you, Carrie.
One of the things I love about artists is that they riff off of each other and acknowledge the inspiration that they get from one another. And I recently met an artist that moved here through the Bloomington Remote program who already is creating this sort of magnetic community around art, around music, and inviting people in. I think we need to look for those artists and their entrepreneurial spirit and then equip them to do what they're doing. And so in terms of a specific plan for how we get and keep folks here, I think that what we really need to do is talk to those that we've been fortunate enough to attract and retain here. We have some people in this room actually who are creating community around the arts. And it's not in a given place. It's out on the plaza on First Thursdays. It's during the gallery walk. We need more of those gathering places and those gathering events that communicate to our younger artists that they are welcome here. But even more importantly, we have some incredibly successful startups here that are growing. And I think many people don't know about that. And if we look at the arts as one of those critical economic development clusters that we need to foster, our community will be better. We will thrive because of it.
Great, thank you. All right, moving along, and I promise I didn't have any hand in asking this question. It was handed to me by these two over here. And we'll start with Susan, because Susan has the, I think, longest history being involved in our city-owned arts venues. So, Susan, what is your vision for the future of the city-owned downtown arts venues, specifically the Buskirk Chumley Theater and the John Waldron Arts Center, which we're now in, and how do you plan to partner with the organizations that manage them?
Well, long may they thrive. I have my 100th anniversary pin for the Buskirk Chumley Theater. It's a gem in our downtown. It is a pride point in our downtown, and we need to keep it whole, and we need to keep it functioning. And if the city can play a part in helping to partner with that, I am all aboard for that. This Waldron Arts Center, another anchor in the downtown. And I will have to say I have some concerns right now about some recent changes in which city-owned properties, assets are somehow, it's been floated, it's going to be managed not necessarily by the city of Bloomington anymore, but by a 501c3 managing board. I'm hearing different things back and forth as to what that actually means, how that's going to be funded, what that's going to look like. But I do have some concerns about it because as someone who does believe in public support for the arts, I want to make sure that those of us who are decision makers at the city, leaders at the city, have the ability to continue to help manage this. And I have the utmost trust in the management corporations of both the Buskirk Chumley Theater and you here at the Waldron Arts Center, and that is Constellation, the brilliant merger between what was Cardinal, what is Pegasus, and what is the BPP. You all know what you're doing. And so we want to make sure that we entrust the management of these valuable community assets, that I have every intention of continuing to keep our hands in that, to make sure that they thrive into the future as they have served us in our past.
Carrie, you manage some nonprofits, and we mentioned that 501c3. We'd love to hear about your vision for these downtown arts venues.
Well, I'll start by saying that I will always consult the management, the nonprofits that are managing these venues before you find out what's going to happen to you in a press release. This is partnership, folks. And if the city wants these incredible nonprofits to thrive, then we best ask them what it is that they need and what challenges they're facing before we try to solve things at them. So first, my leadership style always has been and will continue to be that the smartest person in the room is the room. I need professionals who know what they're doing to tell me how these venues can succeed. And the mayor may have a capital investment in these buildings, but the way they operate and what they need is best known by the BCT and Constellation. And so we should be in a dynamic partnership all of the time. And if we have a comprehensive vision for where we're going with the arts, and to my knowledge, the last comprehensive vision was written down in 2015, so it's probably time to update that. If we have that comprehensive vision, then the city should be at the table and an active voice in promoting these incredible organizations, which will help their fundraising because people will understand what it is that these organizations are doing for our community, and they'll have a seat at the table to understand so that the mayor and the city hall will understand what it is they can best do to serve the arts organizations.
Great. Don?
I don't think the city, well, in Don Griffin's administration, we don't want, we're not going to want these buildings back. We want you to remain as tenants and caregivers of these facilities. When we're talking about building the arts community, it's building you up as well as an organization. So in regards to this building, the Waldron, we love what's happening here, or the city loves, Don Griffin loves what's happening here. And we just want it to keep thriving. Same with the Buskirk Chumley. I've been around when it's been given back, and it's one of those things like, no, you take it. No, you go ahead and take it. So the folks who know how to who use the building know best how to use it, and that's what I've got.
Okay. Any responses? Yeah, Susan.
Well, again, I was fairly shocked because things kind of come fast and furious these days. And as a member of the city council, about the whole 501c3 plan, and that was going to be, the leadership for the Hopewell development, the trades district, the tech, and then the Waldron and the Buskirk Chumley, because I knew that a contract had just been recently signed for the management of the Waldron here, and that was not done respectfully or with the proper partnership with the people who are currently managing the Buskirk and the Waldron. And so there was some consternation, there was some unease about it, and I don't know that we all, at this point in time, even know exactly what this means for the future. So I think we need some clarification, and I think I, as mayor of Bloomington, would definitely be more committed to the security that those of you who are taking on these important assets, these arts assets that make Bloomington so special, we need to have a more secure partnership that does have the collaboration that Carrie is referring to, that certainly would be a part of how I deal with things.
I love how complicated things, how people in leadership positions make somewhat complicated things scary, instead of just finding out themselves how things work and then scaring you into thinking that they're bad.
I just want to comment, because I neglected to do so before, that we should be so proud that Constellation was able to attract a 7-figure gift to invest in this building and turn it into this jewel, a city-owned building that Constellation was able to secure a philanthropic gift to do that for our community's arts center here. Thank you. thank you for your work in turning this into such a jewel.
Great. Okay. We have time for at least one, if not two more questions from the audience. The next one is the downtown area of Bloomington has a thriving arts culture, as we all know. How would you balance support for this downtown cultural center with providing resources and opportunities in other areas of the city, particularly those that are underserved? So who would like to go first? Don, do you have any thoughts on that? Particularly in the downtown area.
Yeah, I think we have to start looking at our downtown as a porch. I love sitting on my porch and hearing things or smelling things and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to take a jonder and see what's going on at the park. I think I think the downtown, when we think of our culture, and we look at that as our base, but we go out further into our communities and share the rest of what's happening downtown with the rest of the community. And actually, we bring things from the outskirts as well. We can learn. We can actually learn by going out of our bubble. And sometimes I don't think we see that. I've got a son who is he's at Jacobs. He's going to be in the opera here coming up. I'll probably sleep through half of that. No, I'm teasing. No, I love it. I'm teasing.
It's on
He's
the
not
record.
here. He's not here. But folks, we have this unbelievable opportunity to enjoy everything that Bloomington and Monroe County has. If you're not going to the opera and then going to the county fair or the Apple Butter Festival, then you are missing out on everything that we are. When we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and when we're talking about that, we need to accept it all. You're missing out. As a person who grew up here, it's the best place in the world when you see beyond who you think you're supposed to be.
Thanks, Don. Susan.
Well, of course, we know that the arts can happen anywhere. They can happen spontaneously, they can happen in established venues. And so I think we need to be creative, and I know you can, about thinking about how do we reuse some of the empty storefronts that we're seeing? Who manages those? Who owns those? And can we do some creative things there? All across the city. It's not just in the downtown where we see empty storefronts on the first floor retail that's required. We have the Monroe County History Center, and I think history is an important part of Bloomington, and working with things like our limestone history and our African American heritage history that we're hearing more about, thanks to Liz Mitchell and your good work on the Historic Preservation Commission. We have activity happening on the east side in the College Mall. We know that retail has taken some hits, and there are spaces in our malls that could perhaps be reused and repurposed. I'm a big believer in being very spontaneous and creative as to where other parts of the city can certainly capitalize on the extreme talent that we all know we have here in the city of Bloomington. So let's stay creative, Bloomington, and let's keep Bloomington all over the place.
Thanks, Susan. Carrie.
I think this is an excellent question. And when I was CEO at Habitat, we did orientation tours for our new volunteers, and we would drive them around to places where we had built Habitat houses in the past and then out to an active job site. And I was struck every single time we had people in that van who would say they'd lived in Bloomington for 20 years. I've never been here. I've never been here. Proximity matters. And we have one of the most incredible street festivals there is, Lotus Festival. And what happens during that festival? All kinds of people together in the streets dancing, right? If we took the arts into the neighborhoods where people don't go, what a pride point that would be. I'm not talking about pivoting all of Lotus where we need restaurants and everything else, but we do have food trucks now. And we have plenty of pop-up concerts. And for the last couple of weekends, I have been canvassing in 2 neighborhoods, in Waterman and up in Crestmont, where time and again I knock on a door and people say, I've never had a candidate come to my door before. Who are you? We need to be taking our arts into the neighborhoods where people aren't going, because there's awesome people there. And they deserve to have pride points as well. So that's a simple idea that I think could really have some impact.
Thank you. Yeah, Don, please.
So the city of Bloomington, I think, is actually working on that, where we are engaging neighborhoods, different neighborhoods. I think Broadview is going to be one of the first ones, where it's going to allow folks, if you're an artist, to sell art on your lawn. If you are a musician, to busk on your front porch. But we'll have several weekends where neighborhoods are engaged. This is the whole idea of getting our community ready for what's next by engaging the community before working on a bigger building. But you're absolutely right. It's a great idea to engage neighborhoods.
Great. Anyone else? Well, we have time for one last question before we get to your closing remarks from the audience. And if you didn't get a chance, didn't hear your question asked, I'm sure you can run down here right after the event and accost them with your question. They won't mind.
Invite us into conversation.
Invite
with
us into
your
conversation. There you go.
questions, yes.
That's why you're in politics, Carrie. So last one, very specific, and let's just do 1 minute for these answers. How can the city partner with Indiana University specifically regarding the arts? And whoever would like to take it first, I'll have free reign.
I'll take it.
Thanks, Carrie.
Let's look at the Arts and Humanities Council and the excellent work that Ed Commentali and the team that he's put together there are already doing, and look at how we expand that. We have now tied together our gallery walk to go all the way up to campus. And so that work is underway, and I think that we can do better. Especially in inviting people that don't feel comfortable going onto campus to go onto campus. And, for years now, we have been able to take some Habitat families to performances at the MAC and also at the auditorium. And I'm surprised at families who've been in our community for 4 and 5 generations, some never been on campus. So it has to go both ways.
Sure. Well, there can certainly be strains between town and gown, and it sometimes is daunting for people to venture into the campus and try to find a place to park and take advantage of all the wonderful things there that, of course, I have certainly done throughout my life. We do partner with Indiana University. Many of the students who are going to school there in music, performing arts, the visual arts, they're coming out into the community and engaging with some of the things that we do here. We can always do a better job. We can certainly communicate and share the resources. The first Thursdays have been remarkable. They've been very enjoyable, as our first Fridays have been. But again, to blend the best of what we are as Bloomingtonians and what Indiana University brings to the excellence of the arts through the Jacobs School of Music, through the Eskenazi Museum, through the incredible array of talented faculty and students and interns, we can certainly capitalize on the best of both.
Folks, we should be having festivals every week, every month, when we blend in our talent as well as the diversity of folks that we have. We have partnered with Ed's group. We actually have an employee that we now share, that they pay for half and the city of Bloomington pays for half. So there is this town of gown. So great job, folks, predicting the future like that. But yes, it will actually start to happen very, very, very soon. So
Awesome. Thank you all. Okay, time for closing remarks, and we're going to limit these to about 2 minutes each, starting with Carrie.
The arts are such a jewel for Bloomington, and not just because of the experiences that we have with them and the beauty that you all have created, but because it is the thing that makes people want to be here. And in order to ensure that the arts are really truly thriving and can continue to do so, we need to look at arts as a critical component of our economic development. Economic development doesn't happen without the arts. And our city will not be truly great if we look at the arts as a nice to have accessory. Instead, it is a critical piece of how we think, how we can turn our minds around to new possibilities, and how we can create a built environment that calls people into belonging. As your mayor, I will prioritize the arts, and I will ensure that, in fact, artists are invited into many conversations, not just about the arts, because you can help us think differently and creatively about everything that we do. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carrie. Susan.
The possibilities are endless to preserve, protect, and grow our downtown anchors and expand arts opportunities throughout Bloomington. If you can't find things to do in Bloomington, that likely speaks to the need for better promotions and accessible arts calendars. We have visual arts, performing arts, theater and dance, film, a comedy club, galleries, museums, music of all types, arts and music festivals, public art, culinary arts, literary arts, and spoken word. We need to pay much more attention to our building development to encourage beautiful architecture and inviting public spaces. An arts incubator like the Mill for the tech sector would be a great addition. Let's create housing for artists to live and work. Let's promote creativity in public art, landscaping, and green environments. Youth art development will inspire the emerging artists required to keep our arts pipeline healthy. It's hard to imagine a Bloomington that doesn't lead the state as an attractive home for creative people. We can become even stronger in our reputation to support local artists, improve economic vitality through tourism and placemaking, to maintain valuable arts assets and build the capacity for more. As your mayor, I will have the experience, the relationships with the arts community, and the arts know-how to keep Bloomington an exceptional regional attraction for artists, patrons, and audiences. I will appreciate your support and your votes on or before the all-important primary election on May 2. And I want to thank the members of the Arts Alliance, Arts Forward, and the Buskirk-Chumley Theater for hosting us tonight. Thank you so much for your attention.
My home is Bloomington. My love is art, and it always has been. So I had to write down all the stuff. I'm just going to tell you about me and art. At the age of 6, my mom would take me onto campus to attend art lessons every Saturday morning. I told you that. Nicole, my wife, learned how to play violin starting with the cigar box at the age of 4 with Mimi Zog. Joshua Bell was also in her class at the time. Wife is still an amazing closet violinist. I called you out, I'm sorry. In high school, I was in South's Jazz Band. I was in the marching band, and I was the senior leader who led Sounds of South to its only state title. So I sing too, by the way, not very well. Griffin Realty was the key sponsor every year for Jazz in July at the Art Museum. I know you folks, older folks, remember that. Griffin Realty has been a key sponsor for the Black and Brown Arts event every year. Griffin Realty has Don Griffin and Nicole Griffin have purchased several pieces of African-American art for the Eskenazi Museum. We needed more representation of people that looked like us there. Griffin Realty has sponsored several years of Youth and Art Month. Griffin Realty has sponsored and hosted poetry slams. I've been responsible, I'm also on the national board for the Eskenazi Museum along with my wife. And then our child, Dexter, is a vocal performance major at Jacobs, as well as being part of the musical theater program here in Indiana. So when I'm telling you I love arts and I want Bloomington to be this destination, This isn't something that I just picked up because I wanted to run for mayor. This has been my drive for my entire existence here. And I see it. And I know you guys see it too. You wouldn't be here if you didn't see the vision of who we can be. Believe in Bloomington. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much to our three candidates. I love that you all showed up for the arts. Big thank you to, again, to Holly Warren, the Assistant Director of the Arts, for helping put together all of our materials. Susan Savistuck for keeping the time. Amazing. I mean, you should consider doing contract work for the rest of the forums, because that was really great. So if you have yet to sign the sign-in sheet on your way out, please do so. That'll add you to the Arts Alliance of Greater Bloomington email list. You definitely want to stay informed. Big thank you also to Arts Forward Bloomington for helping put this together. And then Susan mentioned the date. I will repeat it. Primary date, May 2nd. Of this year. Early voting has started, so you can get out there and vote right away. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Oh, check out the galleries on your way out, please. Enjoy the art in the building on your way out.